Welcome to the Skeptic Zone, the podcast from Australia for science and reason.
Ah, yes, one labradoodle to rule them all, but now it's Richard Saunders.
What?
One labradoodle.
It must be...
What other show do you hear the word labradoodle on?
The Labradoodle Show.
That's true. It's a very popular show.
It is. Hello and welcome to the Skeptic Zone, episode number 394. And Richard Saunders here with Maynard at Skeptics in the Pub.
It's a pretty big night tonight. I can see a lot of people are lining up for an argument. There's a few people that have bought jugs of beer just to pour over other people.
Pour over you?
Yeah, I'm going.
That's how you get your drinks these days, isn't it, Maynard? People throw
The amount of free drinks I've had thrown at me in my lifetime.
What's coming up on this week's show, I hear you ask?
Yes. What's coming up on the show this week, Richard?
I'm glad you asked. We're going to be talking to Dr Chris Fleming all about conspiracy theories. Also, we're going to visit Choice magazine here in Sydney and talk to Tom Godfrey, their media representative, about consumer affairs and medicine and all sorts of things like that.
If I have a date that doesn't go well, can I complain to consumers? Control about that?
Write an article for Choice magazine. Choice magazine and the Australian Skeptics are sort of very kindred spirits, you know. We both look at shonky and dodgy products. You and I went and reported, and Joe Alabaster, of course, we were at the Shonky Awards last year.
That's true, and we didn't get one this year.
Not yet. We might with the Shonky podcast. And also we're going to be continuing the coverage of this chiropractor who cracked the back of the 4-day-old baby. He was recently on the TV in the last couple of days here in Australia, and he really made a meal of it. He didn't do very well at all, but we'll be covering that.
Oh, yeah, I could imagine that if you've got to explain yourself, you've got to be really good if that's what you're going to be doing.
You have to be on your game, and he wasn't. He was not on his game. All that coming up, and for those people who want to know, Henrietta and Maud are doing very well.
They are too. I've been taking some photos of Hen. Hen seems to be the one that likes the camera.
Yeah, she's a ham. Hen the ham, I think. Yeah, that's right.
I bought them a cardboard box. And isn't it great that you can spend all this money on kitten toys and kitten homes and stuff, and all you really need to do is give them a shoebox with a hole in it?
Yeah, a shoebox or a big box with a couple of holes in it, and kittens are as happy as, well, kittens can be, I think. That's right. All that coming up on the Skeptic Zone. Look, Maynard, I think we better run off to the bar there and order some more drinks and some schnitzel. How about some schnitzel?
Oh, no, I'm going to order myself a parfait de more. I'm getting a Voc from the top shelf.
Good heavens.
It's purple and smells like perfume. It's lovely.
Yes, your Skeptic Zone, all those people who contribute to the Skeptic Zone, this is where all your money goes. Yep. Buying us drinks and who knows what else. Anyway, while we do that, we hope you enjoy
the Skeptic Zone. In the belly of the beast here. If you've been out there selling stuff at the $2 markets that are really worth $2.50, you are in so much trouble. Let me tell you right now, you're in a lot of Ken trouble, because we are here at Choice magazine, where you'll be named, shamed, and a photo of your bum put out the front of the building for everybody at the football oval across the road to look at. That's what's going to happen to you. We have here
Tim Mendham and Richard Saunders.
And the guy in the hot seat,
Tom Godfrey.
And what's your job, little boy?
I am head of media for my sins.
No.
Choice and the Consumer Affairs Australian Consumer Association has been around for a long time. I used to work opposite it, actually, when it was in Chippendale, in a little warehouse there, actually. Nice old place. But it was always had the image of being sort of comparing products, appliances and services, working out what's the best value for money, etc. And that's probably still the main image that Choice has in the magazine, etc. Fridges and appliances and you name it. But also you do deal with shonky technology and shonky products. And that's obviously what is the subject of your Shonky Awards. How much do you think that represents of what Choice does?
Yeah, look, it's the essence of what we do, because whether we're looking at a fridge or the latest bit of tech or a claim on some packaging, what it's about is trying to get to the heart of the issue, because what we tend to find is that manufacturers and big brands push the envelope in a bid to get you to pay a price premium. And often when we get to the heart of it, that price premium shouldn't really be there. and time again, it is often the biggest companies in the market, big global multi-billion-dollar brands that are trying to deceive and dupe consumers.
Just on a specific one here, in the Shonkies last year, there was an issue with, was it Samsung washing machines that had a potential fire issue? What happened with that?
Look, this is an absolute disgrace. So Samsung, a big global brand, operating in many different markets, but they put a washing machine on the market. 144,500 of these washing machines were faulty. So what would you do? If you put a faulty washing machine on the market, what would you do? Obviously, you'd get it off because these have a really nasty habit of catching fire. In fact, there's been more than 250 incidents or fires in Australia, but Samsung refused to let people know. We've asked them repeatedly, go on TV, spend as much money as you do promoting new products to get this old dodgy product off the market, but they refuse. And the reason they refuse is because they're trying to protect their brand, which is cold comfort for all those consumers across the country who have lost their homes and are still now dealing with Samsung trying to get compensation. My firm advice to anyone with a Samsung top-loader washing machine caught up in this recall is just get it out of your home and get your money back and go and buy another brand. You have a right in Australia under Australian consumer law that came in 2011 to repair, replacement or a refund if there's a major failure. Now, what we see all too often is that these big brands bully consumers into signing non-disclosure agreements and gag orders before they're giving them those basic rights. It's a disgrace. And look, I think always, if you get into a problem, if a product fails, don't stay quiet. Definitely come to choice, go to the regulator. And the other thing to remember is these companies have a mandatory reporting provision. If you've been to see a doctor, if that product has caused harm, then these companies need to report to the ACCC that there's been a problem. But they are so keen on protecting their brands, and I think they're all very nervous of social media and any negative coverage they might get online.
Well, let's get on to a subject that came to our notice recently, but it's an ongoing story, and this is the recent decision to fine the people behind the Nurofen pain relief pills a $1.7 million fine, which to them probably isn't that much. But the point is that the Nurofen were marketing the same pill to do different things, target pain in different areas of the body. And I know Choice has been on this case for a long time.
Yeah, look, targeted pain relief is a con, plain and simple. We first blew the whistle on this in 2010 when we gave Nurofen a shonky. We all know that these pain relievers, be it ibuprofen or paracetamol, are systemic. Once you take it, it goes to wherever the pain is in the body. But these companies, and it's purely for profit, they want to convince you that these pills work differently and target particular types of pain, whether it be neck and back, period pain, or otherwise. So it is purely just a play for profit. It's a total con. And what's even more concerning is that this company was found to have been misleading consumers. They only got a $1.7 million fine. I mean, it is completely insignificant compared to how much money this company is making each year from putting these dodgy claims in the market. And look, it's not just about profit and ripping consumers off. I mean, you'd be far better obviously just buying the generic that didn't have the dodgy targeted pain relief message. It's also dangerous because there is a real risk that people could interpret that as, oh, I've got two pains, I've got a headache and I've got a back pain, and take double the dose. It's irresponsible. And look, to say that it's not just Nurofen, it's Panadol as well, and they should just stop it. And what we'd like to see, that $1.7 million fine, that should be bulked up. You know, the fine needs to fit the crime, and it just doesn't at the moment for breaches of consumer law in this area.
You should have a fine for the head and a fine for the back. That's right.
Okay, then when you're looking at sort of Nurofen, which is a painkiller, presumably it does kill pain, right? It just doesn't do it the way they say it do, the targeted. So, but what about products that don't do what they say they can do? That are truly shonky.
Yeah, look, and there are plenty of those out there. And each year we have our annual Name and Shame-a-thon where we put forward a lot of those shonky products. We put a call out to the community. And you see them coming through all the time, whether it's a phone cover that says it's waterproof that just completely isn't. And, of course, that can be disproved pretty quickly by throwing it in the water. But look, business will continually try it on. And I think, our role here is to keep business honest. We've been doing it since 1959, and we're getting stronger and stronger every year.
Yeah, well, so one of the areas that, of course, the skeptics get into is not just the marketing, which is obviously what a lot of your problems are about, but also the supposed scientific evidence that underpins some of these products. And that's, things like the Power Balance wristband, which Richard was very much involved with debunking and is now off the market.
And that got a shonky.
That got a shonky as well. Okay, that's the sort of area. Do you do a lot of that with pseudoscience?
Oh, look, absolutely. It's at the heart of what we do in the product testing business particularly, because looking at the claims and looking at the supposed science behind the products, if you spend a bit of time, it can be pretty easy to disprove what's being told.
Well, speaking of tips, I'll leave you with this. This is one of the magazines that we regularly collect to get a lot of our tips from. Yeah. It's a New Age magazine. And without saying too much, I'll draw your attention to one of the advertising here for a device which you plug into your wall or you put on the back of your mobile phone, and all your radiation problems are swept away.
Good luck with that.
It looks a lot like a bit of plastic and a bit of plastic that goes on your phone.
Yeah, no, that's right. It's amazing what people will try, isn't it?
Are there areas you don't touch? Have you touched areas like homeopathy, things like that? Because the checkout does, and all those sort of vitamin products and home. Do you actually look into those as well?
Look, we do, and a lot of what we do obviously is research based. So we're looking at the size of markets and the level of consumer detriment to a problem. It's not to say that we won't touch all sorts of things from time to time, but what we tend to do is focus on the big ones. So obviously at the moment we're out there on private health insurance. So we're in there looking at 38,000 policies of the 48,000 on the market, because what we've seen is a rise in what we term junk insurance policies, where consumers are paying up to $2,000 a year for this hospital cover that then excludes them from nearly 5,000 treatments. It's pretty hopeless. Really, it's just a marketing tool for the funds to keep you in their network and help you avoid a bit of taxes and surcharges on the way through.
We actually did an investigation some time ago into health funds and the sort of things they do support, which is a lot of the very much pseudoscientific areas. There are people supporting iridology and homeopathy and osteopathy and chiropractic and naturopathy, all sorts of areas. And, of course, the health funds are subsidised by the government, right? So, therefore, our concern was that here's government money, taxpayers' money going towards supporting health fund payouts for things that just don't work.
Yeah, look, I think it's a really interesting point. And not a lot of people realise that health insurance is actually two things. It's hospital cover, and it's good to have that, and you want top-level cover policy with an excess or a co-payment. Unfortunately, people are being downgraded into junk policies there, but the types of things you've been talking about tend to fall in extras cover. And what we find is extras cover is generally pretty shocking value, and the average payout rates are around $370 a year, but people are paying a great deal more than that in premiums. And I just think that you need to get yourself an annual claim statement. If you're paying that type of insurance, find out whether or not you're actually getting more in benefit than you're paying out in premium, because if you're not, pretty simple equation, just get rid of it and save a bit of money for the dentist.
Do you have to actually ask for an annual claim statement? Does it automatically get sent out to you?
Yeah, like when you do it, the rep on the phone is horrified. They didn't think many people realised that these things exist, but they do. And I got mine the other day, and it was a pretty simple equation. I hadn't made any claims, and I'd spent a small fortune. So look, happily get rid of it. And unlike hospital insurance, you can drop your extras cover without any tax penalties. So you won't be feeling better if you keep paying those big bills.
Okay, as my dad's always reminding me, a lot of the funds actually have a funeral payout, but because the person who's been taking it out passes away, the relatives don't know that, so it never gets claimed sometimes. That is what can happen, yeah.
As well. There's lots of very strange insurance products, and I think funeral insurance is one of them. Every time we look at it, it's pretty appalling value. And the base lesson with a lot of these insurance products, we see it with pet insurance as well, is that you'd be far better off just putting a little bit of money aside and covering the cost yourselves. Avoid all the nonsense that the companies are telling you, because ultimately they only exist there to make a lot of money.
I always like the way that the people promoting funeral insurance are so happy to look forward to dying. I'm 65, I'm really looking forward to dying, and my kids are not going to pay for it. On those areas, you obviously deal with a lot of other sort of regulators, etc., the ACCC, people like that. How effective are they?
Look, they can be very effective, and what we've seen recently is some increased funding to the ACCC, which is really good. And I think really that's what is required. And whether we look at the ACCC or ASIC, they need resources. And sadly, at the moment, ASIC, when it's taking on some of the biggest and most profitable financial institutions in the world, seems a little bit undergunned. So we certainly would support greater funding for the ACCC and ASIC to take on, what has been, a shocking display recently in the financial sector. Whether it's, the biggest banks in the country trying to lobby to remove consumer protections, and then in the same hand, they're presiding over some of the worst financial planning disasters going around. I just think, the regulators need to be strong and well funded so that these businesses are called to account.
Does that mean, the ACCC recently took a case against Homeopathy Plus, which is hardly at the big end of town, right? And they won because Homeopathy Plus was claiming that homeopathic vaccinations were better than... For whooping cough, yeah, were sort of better than anything else. Yeah. I know, it's a worry. But it was outrageous statements. They asked them to take the statements down off their website. They didn't. They fought it. They lost. Homeopathy Plus lost. And the payouts were... From a Homeopathy Plus point of view, would have been crippling. But from an ACCC point of view, whether you're recouping your costs, that's obviously done as an ethical issue almost by the ACCC.
To the market as well, yeah. And I think that's it. The ACCC does a great job, and obviously they've got a very big remit. And cases like that, I think, send a really clear message to others who might not directly be in that space but are pushing boundaries that there are some big fines and they will get crippled.
Yeah. So. Well, that's an interesting case because with the Homeopathy Plus people, they were dealing with true believers. Yeah. These people who really, in their heart of hearts, believe this stuff actually works. Whereas maybe we can look at some of the other dodgy products that have come and gone, the power balance bands, for example. Well, the people behind it knew full well it was a dodgy product from the beginning. So it's interesting you get to deal with two different...
that's right. And I think that's why choice will always exist, because whether or not it's people doing it with the pure intent to deceive you or they're just doing it unknowingly, there is always a role for someone to keep them honest.
On that role, is it a lonely role for choice? There are many other... sort of the Checkout does it these days on the ABC, right? But there's not a lot of others out there doing it, and quite a few promoters of the other side.
Yeah, I was going to say, in the legal profession, it's not a very sexy area to be in consumer law on the consumer side. There's not a lot of money in it, and there's not a lot of glamour in it either, really.
Yeah. I saw him on the TV. He was.
That's it. No, it's really interesting because now that obviously social media has taken off, we're getting a lot of people wanting to get engaged. And what's fascinating about that is that you get support from really interesting places in the community, and you can see it live and people arguing your case for you. So if you get the message right and then you empower the community, they often will take that consumer affairs message for you into the market. And what's been really interesting recently, where we launched a free-range egg boycott against 19 brands that we believed were just ridiculous with their free-range claims. People embraced it. We're getting 10,000 scans on egg cartons every day, basically showing people how they're being misled and deceived with these claims, and it's just being embraced by the community and shared. So if you get it right, it can go viral like that, and you can have a huge impact long and far beyond these doors.
All right. Well, Tom, thank you so much. It's always good to come by to Choice Magazine. The Australian Skeptics and Choice Magazine have had a long and happy relationship. We do cross over quite a bit. And, of course, I very well remember, not helping Choice, because that's not exactly how it works, but letting them know more about the power balance ban. And I was delighted when that received the shonky some years ago. And I would offer you an open invitation to come and talk to our group at Skeptics in the Pub, which is the first Thursday of the month, and it's tonight, as a matter of fact, but we have a speaker tonight. But you're always welcome in the coming months if you want to come along and address our group. It's quite a fun evening. And if people want to find out more about Choice Magazine or even subscribe, how do they go about that?
Well, jump to choice.com.au and it's all there. And I would encourage everyone, if you've got a tip, let us know.
Yeah. Is there information there about the Trans-Pacific Trade Agreement? Because that's really confusing. Is there a simple place on your site we can read about?
Yeah, there is. So, again, just go to choice.com.au, type in TPP, and there's an explainer there. There's also a campaign action you can take to help us keep the pressure on the government to get out of this dodgy ISDS clause.
Secrets of the Psychics. Australian Skeptics Sydney dinner meeting, 4th of June at the Ryde Eastwood Leagues Club in West Ryde. In preparation for the visit by psychic medium John Edward to Australia, we're thrilled to have a special event for our next dinner meeting in Sydney, a double act, with a demonstration of psychic powers by self-professed psychic Nellie Klein, and an explanation of the psychic skills by Richard Saunders, judge of the psychic TV challenge show The One, and senior investigator for Australian Skeptics Inc. Miss Klein has agreed to do readings of members of our audience, giving you the chance to see her psychic powers in action and see how accurate they are. Richard will follow this with a presentation of psychic tricks of the trade, using his extensive knowledge and confrontation with claimants. Ooh, that sounds interesting. I might even go to this one myself. So that's the Australian Skeptics dinner meeting, the 4th of June, at the Ryde Eastwood Leagues Club in West Ryde. 6:30 for 7:15, it says. Cost is $50 per person, which includes a buffet dinner, and the dinners there are pretty damn good. Plus a lucky door prize, somebody will get their ticket refunded. For more information, visit www.skeptics.com.au.
How much truth is there to claims of risk caused by the treatment of beef cattle with antibiotics? I'm Tamara Robertson, and you're hooked up to the feeding tube.
The Feeding Tube is the web video series that brings you the real facts behind popular food myths. Food woo is the most pervasive pop pseudoscience out there right now, and it desperately needs debunking. Each 3-minute episode is suitable for general audience and is produced by scientists for everyone. The Feeding Tube, check it out, feedingtube.tv. The Skeptic Zone continues to bring you updates on the Melbourne chiropractor Ian Rossborough, who cracked the back of a 4-day-old baby. His reasoning was to relieve the baby of colic.
I'm going to take that contact there like that. I have to, unfortunately, just extend her a little bit to get it in the right place. That's why we be quick. Hey, darling. Hey.
There is an excellent overview of this whole affair over at Science Based Medicine, sciencebasedmedicine.org. I'll add a link to the show notes. If you go to Science Based Medicine, you'll find the article there entitled The Crack Heard Around the World by Clay Jones. Rossborough himself appeared on the national TV show Studio 10 earlier last week to defend the video, his actions and chiropractic. It didn't go very well for him at all, and I'll add that video to the show notes as well. But to quote a segment of the report at Science Based Medicine, what really happened in the Rossborough video? The funny thing is, the child in the video doesn't have acid reflux or colic. Neither of those are conditions we diagnose in a 4-day-old infant. The kid was hungry. What the parents describe, and taking into account the mild prematurity of the infant, is consistent with a hungry, cluster-feeding baby whose mother's milk hasn't come in yet. The reason the child was less fussy 1 week later was because by that time it had. She didn't need chiropractic. She needed a weight check and an evaluation of her obvious jaundice. Her parents needed reassurance and breastfeeding support. They all just needed a good primary care doctor. From the website of Australian Skeptics, skeptics.com.au, Vic Health Minister calls for action on chiro regulation, by Tim Mendham, published on the 6th of May. Following a public outcry, the Victorian Health Minister, Jill Hennessy, has raised serious concerns about the practices and regulation in the chiropractic industry, calling for urgent action on these issues. She is the second health minister to raise concerns about the chiropractic industry, following the South Australian Health Minister Jack Snelling, who wrote to the Australian Health Practitioners Regulation Agency, AHPRA, and the Chiropractic Board of Australia, CBA, in February demanding to know what they are doing about chiropractors involved in, quote, potentially false or misleading advertising, end quote. Snelling is the chair of the COAG Health Council, whose members comprise all Australian government ministers, state and territory ministers, and ministers from the New Zealand government with direct responsibility for health matters, which includes Hennessy. Hennessy has not issued a formal statement on the issue, but in interviews with the media, she says she has called for urgent action against rogue chiropractors amid outrage over the manipulation of babies' spines. This follows the wide distribution of a YouTube clip of chiropractor Ian Rossborough cracking the back of a 4-day-old premature baby. Rossborough has recently posted another video of himself adjusting the neck of his own baby. Local skeptics and concerned members of the community have raised the issue with the Victorian Human Services Minister and the Department of Health. There has also been much space on mainstream and social media devoted to the clip and its wider implications for chiropractic practice. Hennessy said that she was, quote, physically shaken, end quote, after viewing the initial video. Like Snelling, she has written to the AHPRA and the CBA seeking action on chiropractors performing, quote, unproven and potentially unsafe procedures on young children and infants, end quote. In particular, she was concerned about the persistent claims from a, quote, small cohort of chiropractors, end quote, that spinal or scalp treatment could cure conditions such as colic, autism, ear infections, and ADHD. She said that in her letter to the AHPRA and the CBA, she raised doubts that the current regulations were preventing rogue chiropractors from making unsubstantiated and dangerous claims, and asked the board to review its accountability mechanisms. In March, the CBA, the group responsible for chiropractic industry standards, issued its own warning to chiropractors that, quote, claims suggesting that manual therapy for spinal problems can assist with general wellness and or benefit a variety of pediatric symptoms and organic conditions are not supported by satisfactory evidence. This includes claims relating to development and behavioral disorders, ADHD, autism spectrum disorders, asthma, infantile colic, bedwetting, ear infections, and digestive problems, end quote. The baby in Rossborough's initial video was being treated for colic. The Royal Australian College of General Practitioners has told its members not to refer patients to chiropractors and has called for the federal government and private health insurers to stop paying them for questionable treatments. Hennessy was also concerned about the reports from, quote, alarmed, end quote, members of the public who said they had witnessed chiropractors advising parents against vaccinating their children and openly promoting anti-vaccination materials in waiting rooms. Quote, it's reprehensible that chiropractors would peddle anti-vaccination myths outside their scope of practice, end quote, she told the media. CAA interview. Following the publication of Minister Hennessy's comments, ABC morning radio presenter John Fain interviewed Andrew Lawrence, Deputy President of the Chiropractic Association of Australia. In what can only be described as an extremely hesitant response to Fain's uncompromising questioning, Lawrence repeatedly refused to condemn chiropractic treatment of infants. And that comes to us from skeptics.com.au, the website of Australian Skeptics, written by Tim Mendham, published on the 6th of May. And now I'll play a short clip from the aforementioned segment with ABC radio presenter John Fain interviewing Andrew Lawrence, the Deputy President of the Chiropractic Association of Australia.
774 ABC Melbourne, on radio, online and on digital. John Fain.
Good morning, Friday morning, the 6th of May. The state government clamped down on extravagant, even misleading claims made by chiropractors and one viral online video of a chiropractor cracking the spine of a 4-day-old baby. 4 days old. is triggering an enormous outpouring of criticism of the practice of chiropractors. Dr Andrew Lawrence is Deputy President of the Chiropractors Association. Morning to you, Andrew.
Good morning, John.
Are chiropractors out of control?
No, not at all.
What about Mr Rossborough manipulating and cracking the spine of a 4-day-old baby?
Look, I've seen the video, but obviously I wasn't there, so it's a bit difficult for me to comment specifically about it.
Would you, under any circumstances, do that on a 4-day-old baby?
The adjustment of children is by chiropractors has been done safely for a very long period of time.
4 days old. Do you defend it?
As I said, I can't comment because I have no...
You have to comment, Andrew. You're the Deputy President of the Association.
Yeah, well,
you either say it's okay or you say it's not.
Well, the care of children has been a part of chiropractic for a very long period of time.
4 days.
That particular video did not look good, and it's the type of adjustment that occurred is well, really, we don't.
Why not just come out and say it's wrong?
Well, that type of adjustment on a 4-day-old would not be recommended, I wouldn't have thought.
At its worst, Andrew, I've got a snake that needs oiling. Can I send it to you? Are you there?
Yes, I am.
Hi, this is Heidi Robertson from the Northern Rivers Vaccination Supporters. We are a group of concerned citizens dedicated to promoting good science and common sense in our region, the far north coast of New South Wales. This area, famous for its natural beauty and relaxed lifestyle, also has the lowest rates of vaccination in Australia. We are out to change that by challenging the myths and misinformation and by providing good evidence-based information to the community. We'd love for you, no matter where you are in the world, to join our fight. Please visit our webpage at www.nrvs.info. We also have a link there to our Facebook page. Tweet us at NRVaxSupporters, that's VAX, and check us out on Wikipedia by searching for Northern Rivers Vaccination Supporters. Thank you.
Here's Maynard's spooky action at a distance.
Yes, I'm discreetly located near the ladies' toilet where I can keep an eye on everything, scenically opposite the vault. Look at that. Doesn't it look like there's a conspiracy of some sort going in there? I ask our guest tonight at Skeptics in the Pub, who is?
Chris Fleming.
And Chris, what degree have you got and why are you giving us a lecture on conspiracy theories this evening?
Oh, I've got a couple of undergraduate degrees and a PhD in philosophy. Why am I coming here to talk about that? Because you asked me, and you asked very nicely, actually. So it's ego, basically, narcissism, and I think it's a great thing to talk about.
Cool. Look, I'm a huge fan of Nietzsche. Does that make me a weirdo? Do philosophers go, he's into the Nietzsche thing?
No, I've got one of my PhD students is doing a PhD on Nietzsche as we speak. I was reading his work today, so unless we're all weirdos, which is fine.
And that's right, yeah, exactly. Is there a philosopher who isn't a weirdo?
It's hard to say.
Because you spend a lot of time thinking a bit too hard about stuff you really maybe shouldn't.
Yeah, I did. Very often the personal lives of philosophers are not to be emulated, I guess. But
how are you going to broach the whole conspiracy topic to us? And sometimes I find the whole idea, conspiracy theory, adding that word on the end of it, a little bit insulting to people that maybe, because there are genuine theories in legal courts every day in Australia.
Yeah. Unfortunately, English is one of these things we can't control, unlike the French, who pass laws about what words you can use in what way. English is one of these these things. It's unruly, and it's probably good that way. Restricting people from saying theory, I mean, maybe it is, but I mean, I'll be talking about the language of what it means to call something a conspiracy theory as opposed to a conspiracy, because there's things to be noted there.
Oh, okay. No, I like the big ones like the electric universe theory, hologram theory. They're two of my favourite ones because they just overturn everything. Down to really small ones to like, where do the socks always go? Stuff like that. What are your favourites? What really intrigues you?
Well, the one that really got me, I co-wrote a book a couple of years ago, and one of the things I did was watch all the documentaries, and they're all passing by me without much impact, unfortunately.
Lots of Eric von Daniken, man, he is a cool guy, particularly these days. He's got the bling and he's got the bit of gravitas behind him,
I haven't seen him. Well, not for years. He looks like he's in an old metal band, doesn't he? Something like that. Maybe he is. Maybe he's still in a metal band. But so at the end of this, right towards the end, there was one of the shows was on Area 51, so aliens and so on, and I was totally taken. I mean, I didn't believe it in a way, but the guy's testimony was so astonishing that I felt myself believing him. But it's the same conceit that I get when I watch a true crime show. I always have the conceit that I know whether they're guilty or not, that I can read human nature. And I was just certain this guy was telling the truth. I mean, he's not. But it is interesting, right? So I enjoyed that enormously too.
Okay. Now, what about the theory about Area 51? Because that stuff was sort of thrown up as a cover story for what was actually really going on there, like making the Blackbird and developing weapons and communication things that were actually stuff that had to be kept secret because that was a government conspiracy of a military kind.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, this is close to what someone like Noam Chomsky says, is that there are actual plans going on in secret, behind closed doors with powerful men, and that a lot of people waste their time looking at the kind of very they become a structural engineer overnight and decide that September 11 didn't happen and it was a black flag attack by the US. Now, it's, Chomsky's idea is that people like Bush or anyone in the Republican Party would love people buying into this in a way as a distraction. I'm not sure whether he's right, but I mean, there's something to that.
I hadn't realised that there was quite a few ideas around the whole Port Arthur shooting until in recent years. Has that just something that's come up, or has that been something that happened at the time when the gun buyback happened and they linked the two together? Yeah,
there was a small amount of conspiracy theorising at the time, but what we're seeing now is that I think the signal moment for conspiracy theory is really JFK and the Warren Commission report. And that took a couple of years to really kind of take off in a way. The Warren Report was its own Quran and the satanic verses in one. It was a document trying to prove something, and also there were holes in it.
Well, but now there was that early documentary on JFK. Was it Mark Lane who made the first one, black and white one? That is an extraordinary film.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But I mean, what's happening now as you watch major world events is what you could almost call instant revisionism. So as the news report is coming out of the account, there are already circulating the real account. This is the most evident. The last time I saw this happen was with the Boston Marathon bombing. Within an hour, I was getting news feeds about who was really behind it. And it's amazing the pace at which conspiracy theorising is now coming out.
And of course, a lot of people immediately think false flags. And yes, false flag attacks have happened. I mean, the Gulf of Tonkin incident strikes me as maybe, if not a false flag, something that was used to get into the Vietnam War that maybe never even happened.
Yeah. Look, this is the thing, and one of the things that was frustrating about writing about this area is we don't have any surefire algorithm to kind of sort lunacy from reason. There's a sliding scale of plausibility. Now, whether, it seems, at least to me, doubtful that we're being ruled by, reptilian hybrids. But, whether there were some, whether some other conspiracies of a smaller nature, I don't want to name any, but are actually the case, I can't think of any off the top of my head, then, there are gradations of plausibility here. And as you say, there's been, the Tuskegee syphilis experiment, Operation Northcote, which never actually happened. It was planned.
North Winds?
Northwood? It's North something.
Operation North Winds, where they were thinking of introducing, was it a flu agent or something to see how it would go? Or they were thinking of doing hijacking experiments and blaming the Cubans. Was that the one?
Yes, it was. That was the blaming the Cubans. But we've only got written records of that. They never did it, but we've have some account of it. So,
what do you reckon is if someone obviously if there's a skeptic listing, they don't want any truck with this sort of stuff, probably. But if they want to have a good time looking at a documentary that is proposing something, to me, Ancient Aliens is a good one because the production values are good. It's easy to watch. But is there one you would reckon would be an interesting starting point?
A documentary to watch about conspiracies? A really significant one. Loose Change is really interesting as a kind of example of the genre.
And also, unlike other, it kept updating every 6 months or every year. That updated as well, and that's a new thing now too.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So it's it's very significant in terms of modern conspiracy dissemination through
Building 7, man.
Yeah, I know. I don't want to talk about it here, actually. At least not out in the open. But So
okay, loose changes. Yeah, but you found that a bit dull.
Well, in dramatic terms, if you really want to watch a good conspiracy show, watch any television, right? Because that is the main mode in which television operates. I was watching Daredevil last night, right? The whole thing is this incredible conspiracy between building contractors, between sexual slave traders, between, read Dan Brown. I mean, if you really want the good conspiracies, turn to fiction because they're everywhere. You never have a television show that talks about structural inequality or broad social trends, right? Because they're not intrinsically interesting to an audience. So that's where I'd turn. There's not enough in the docos.
How about Oliver Stone, JFK? That is a monumental piece of work.
Yeah, it is. I find Oliver Stone difficult. I didn't forgive him for The Doors, and I find it kind of ponderous. But yeah, why not? I mean, he is himself a conspiracy theorist about most things. But
I think he even did the revisioned history of the United States. He did a series as well, a documentary looking at the alternative history of the United States.
Well, there you go. I had no idea.
That's well worth a go.
And as a Hollywood filmmaker, he'd be in a very good position to do that.
And so what do you think? Do you think you're going to get, what sort of audience tonight? You're going to get a lot of poo-pooers here at the Skeptics. They're going to be poo-pooing everything you're talking about. So you won't have a lot of people arguing with you, but what do you reckon they're going to be like as an audience?
Oh, I just think that I've got no idea. I don't know what... I've given talk for the humanists. I don't know. What's the psychological profile of a skeptic? I don't know. Is it? I'm not sure. I'll find out.
I don't know about that. and I always ask this: if there was one conspiracy theory that you're pretty sure is incorrect, that you would like to be true, is there any conspiracy you think, wow, that would be good if that was one?
Maybe Santa.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
if
there really was a fat man around that conspired secretly to kind of come into your house every year and give you just what you wanted, contingent on you being naughty, or nice rather than naughty, then that would probably be one of the best, I think. But, I mean, I don't know. They're all fun. I wouldn't mind some of them being true for an hour, like the reptilian hybrid theory that we're... governed, and other aliens are governed. There's a hierarchy of aliens. My favourite mid-rank is the intergalactic Sasquatch. But that might be good until things start to kind of blow up. But yeah,
thanks for joining us on the Skeptic Zone. Now, if we can find out where you are online or join in a conversation, where can we find you?
It's drchrisfleming.com.
Cool. Okay. Well, we'll see you there sometime soon. And enjoy your night tonight. I hope a fight doesn't break out.
Oh, well, it depends on the nature of the fight, right?
In fact, I think you appearing here tonight is just one giant false flag event.
Well, yes. I mean, no. Of course not.
Oh, look, we're among the, like I like to call them, the shadowy elite. And as you know, we've got Jessica here. How are you?
Oh, I'm hiding here in the shadows and I'm plotting away.
Now, what's one of the conspiracies that you've found very interesting, the anomalies that you think, man, that's kind of out there?
Oh, it's got to be the theory about the Illuminati and the alien shape-shifting, blood-drinking lizards. Oh. I like that one. It's just so entertaining and theatrical, and it's great on every level.
It's got a touch of sci-fi, it's got a touch of Game of Thrones.
Yeah, and nature.
Yeah. Okay, well, I've got to say, I mean, when you do look at the Queen, you've got to think something's going on there.
Oh, yes. Yes. Oh, yes. Definitely.
And look, and the way she kind of waves. In fact, I reckon she's got a false hand that just waves, and she's actually there playing with her iPad while she's driving along.
And who can blame her, poor woman? Yeah, she must have stress fatigue of the hands.
Oh, look, it's always great to be here at Skeptics at the Pub because Dr. Brad comes along, and you've obviously had a busy day in the surgery and that. It's great that you still want to... you must be exhausted after seeing lots and lots of people as a GP. That must be really exhausting because you never know what the person's going to have when they come through the door.
No, I'm pretty used to it by now, though. So every 15 minutes is a new story and a new person and a new condition. So it's wiped off, and now I'm here for you.
How do they psychologically prepare you for that at medical school? Because it's not something, because you've got to be intense with that person for 15 minutes, like they're the only person you're seeing that day, and then next to
I think it's ground into you over time, so it's just repetition, and sometimes you need to take a bit of a breath between patients, but usually it's all right.
And another thing, just off topic here too, when you are in medical school, how do they teach you to be on the ball and make life-saving decisions over a 12 or 13-hour shift that you have sometimes? How do you mentally get around that? Because that's very tough.
It's called a flat white.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, so any coffee just keeps you focused for the whole day. Yeah.
Oh, wow. So as a medical student, you've had a chance to sample all sorts of ranges of good and bad coffee, haven't you?
Definitely, and usually the bad ones are at hospital.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Especially from a machine. If you're pressing a button, probably not going to be the best coffee.
And at 4 a.m, that's often all you can get.
Yeah, there was a beautiful coffee at one of the hospitals where it came out like an oil slick on top, so it was all shimmering with rainbow colours, which probably wasn't meant to be there.
Wow, it's like drinking a liquid no-dose tablet or something.
Especially when you're doing night shift, it's not a hallucination, it's actually there.
Wow. Well, look, and before it gets too late, I want to ask you, because we're talking about conspiracies tonight, have you got a favourite conspiracy theory, or one that annoys you, or one that even intrigues you the most?
Yeah, I think what I love the most is when people back up conspiracy theories with conspiracy theories. So, if people are coming into the clinic and they're wanting to not vaccinate their children, and then they're trying to back that up by saying that it's a conspiracy, that the government's after them, but it's also from all of the reading that they've been doing about homeopathy that backs up their knowledge about vaccinations. It's sort of like one thing adds on to the next, and I'm just expecting them to be talking about chemtrails then influencing the people that are making the vaccines. It's sort of, it all rolls into one. It's very poetic.
That's very difficult because you're at the coalface of the whole thing. You've got a limited time with this person. How do you get them to try and disengage from that and try and tell them that, well, there is some genuine medicine that can help them?
Well, often people are coming in and they're very convinced of their own argument, and they may just not want to be giving their child a vaccination, and some people come in and they want you to sign an exemption form to say that their children shouldn't be vaccinated. There's not much basis for what they're trying to do, but a lot of people will sort of try to get around it. So they'll say that they have religious reasons that they don't want to immunise their children. But often if you're challenging them about their religious reasons, they just say, oh, well, I don't believe in vaccines, which at the moment in Australia, that's not a good enough excuse to not vaccinate your children, and subjecting your children to potentially deadly viruses and bacteria isn't quite on.
Can I ask you, have you ever signed one for people? Because you've really had to because they've been so unmovable?
No, I refuse to sign exemption forms. I don't think that that's applicable. I think that vaccines are very important for children to have. And I think if you have a personal reason, then you still shouldn't be putting your children at risk. And the government and the medical profession still has an obligation to protect children, whether their parents believe that or not. And I know that sounds contentious, but yeah, it's all about the best for the whole community and the best for the environment.
When have you been in your surgery surgery and someone's come in and maybe it's been related to the vaccination, or someone's given you a theory of the world that has really sat you back on the bones of your posterior there. You go, wow, I've never heard of that one before, and it's actually surprised you. What's been the one that's gone, wow?
I think working in HIV medicine, I have some people that refuse to be on medication because they don't think that it applies to them. They think that it's just going to be poison that's put into their body, and often they haven't had any problems yet because it takes about 5 or so years to actually start to have a weak immune system. But yeah, usually from plotting graphs, actually, and showing how people's white cell count or CD4 count starts to drop over time. You can actually, plot a graph and show, oh, well, in about 6 months, you're probably going to start having problems. So, yeah, by sort of spelling it out to people and explaining things thoroughly and making sure that I'm going through and addressing their issues, normally you can get things pretty good, and people will start to agree.
So this is almost like a classic conspiracy thing where it's a person's personal experience and what they've seen around them that creates the entire thing for them. They haven't seen the people like you have that have been sicker in hospital, and that's what's powering this for them?
Yeah, I think it's ignorance in some regard, or just not having the same life experience. And I think that's where I come into play, being a doctor and having that experience and seeing people that have had significant problems. By trying to put that across and trying to explain it in as vivid terms as possible, can sometimes get the message across.
Well, look, try and enjoy yourself and don't get too angry during the conspiracy presentation, okay?
I think I might need to throw a beer.
And, of course, he's over there. He's quietly eating his fish, but, of course, he's the guest at next month's Skeptics in the Pub. Ian Bryce, how are you? And what is one of your favourite or most intriguing or most interesting or annoying conspiracy theories or anomalies that you like to follow? You know I'm into the electric universe. You know I like the hologram theory. You know both of them refute all the work of Einstein. What have you got for me?
Okay, hello Maynard. Yes, that was a long introduction. Oh, sorry, we're out of time. No. Well, I had a revelation recently. Many years ago when I was visiting Byron Bay, I visited the local airstrip there, where there's a lot of home-built aircraft and their pilots. Spent the day with a bunch of pilots looking at and flying their various machines. And they said, a real aeronautical engineer, can we ask you some questions? So they asked a couple of things. You know all those airliners? There are these pods they have under the wings, 2 or 3 on each side. What are they for? So I told them that, they house the mechanisms that raise and lower the flaps when you take off and land. And they seemed very disappointed. And it was only a few weeks ago when I saw an article on chemtrails, I realised they were hoping that they were secret tanks in which the chemicals were carried for spraying into the atmosphere.
Well, Mr. Aeronautical Engineer, let's talk about the Pentagon and the plane that hit the Pentagon on 9/11. I believe that because of ground effect, a plane that big can't fly that fast, that low to the ground. Is that true, or what have I got going on there in my head?
Well, it didn't have to break that rule for very long, did it?
Right.
It stopped flying, indeed.
Oh, yeah, because I'm just wondering, because people say ground effect, and someone like me goes, oh, okay, and they go, yes, because planes, even military planes, don't go that low that fast, because that doesn't happen. Is there anything in that? Can you give us in a nutshell what I've been told?
Well, ground effect is the idea that you can get a little more lift when you're near the ground than when you're in the air, which is very good for landing, because it cushions the bump when the wheels hit the ground. But it doesn't stop you reaching the ground, or else all the planes that ever took off would still be in the air. So.
Okay, rightio, okay.
So, no, that doesn't negate the idea. I thought you were going to ask for a moment about the vanishing plane, because a lot of conspiracy sites say that no trace of the plane was ever found.
That's the one that went down in Pennsylvania and just left that very funny sort of brown smudge.
No, it was found. No, the one hit the Pentagon. The websites say there was no trace of it found.
Yeah, there was some engines and bits and pieces, but a lot of it did sort of get the aluminium got all sort of as it went through the building, didn't it?
Well, the websites claim there was nothing found of it. That's my point.
Oh, okay.
Lots of it was found, including part of the fuselage that had the name of the airline painted on it. So that's pretty reasonable proof that it was, in fact, that aeroplane that went missing on that day.
And what are you going to be discussing here at Skeptics at the Pub next month?
Okay, well, the next talk here is on gravitational waves. You might remember they were announced in February amid much fanfare. A big breakthrough in astronomy is detecting gravitational waves. So I'm going to talk about what they are and how they were discovered, which is two big detectors called LIGO in the USA.
And that's what you'll be explaining to us next month at Skeptics at the Pub. And I'll be sitting there with my mouth open like Ren and Stimpy going, blah, blah, but I'll be trying very hard when I'm listening.
Fantastic. I look forward to seeing you there, Maynard.
And I'll see you there too. That's next month at Skeptics at the Pub.
The Skeptic magazine, the journal from Australian skeptics. Subscribe online to the world's second oldest skeptical magazine. Visit www.skeptics.com.au and click the publications link. You can also find there over 30 years of back issues free to download. The Skeptic, the magazine from Australian skeptics.
Hey, the show's over. The show's over. It's all over. Time to go home, everybody. Come on. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here.
Well, I mean, we're still at Skeptics in the Pub. You know, we're on our fourth bottle of whatever this red stuff is.
8.May more.
Thank you. Did you enjoy the show this week, Maynard?
I did. It was just like a long, cool brandy Alexander while floating around the pool with a supermodel who's not talking to you. And I've had that experience, and tonight was exactly like that.
I see. And I want to say thank you to those people here at Skeptics in the Pub who gave us the answer to their conspiracy theory. Ian, Bryce, Dr Brad, of course, were very helpful. What did you think of their particular answers?
Look, I thought they were really on the money a few times. I thought Dr Brad was a bit harsh. I thought the language he used was far too inflammatory. But again, he was one of the people who brought the extra jug of beer to throw, and that came in handy, and he won in the end.
But the good thing about Dr Brad, if he says something inflammatory, he's always got an ointment to fix it later.
That's true. He'll say something inflammatory and then he'll write you a prescription for Indesit. It's amazing.
It's amazing, folks. Skeptics in the Pub here in Sydney is the first Thursday of the month, every month. It's a lot of fun. We really enjoy it. A lot of people turn up and there's always interesting talk, so we hope we can see you here one time.
And when is the next one?
First Thursday of the month, so it'll be the first Thursday in June.
We'll be speaking
yes.
about that.
Ian Bryce is back.
Hey, Ian Bryce, well, what will you be talking about in June?
I'll be talking about gravitational waves.
I subscribe to the electric universe theory, so I think that it's all electrical attraction and gravity doesn't exist.
Well, that's a nice theory too, given that two protons attract each other with a force 10 to the 40 times stronger than gravity. The electric charge is much stronger than gravity. That's not a bad hypothesis up front. It just needs to be tested. It just needs to be tested.
There we go. Well, Google the electric universe theory and see how far you get with that, people, because it does have a lot of physics in it that I didn't understand, which I will chat to him about next month.
Sometime or other. Thank you again for listening to the Skeptic Zone, and thank you to those people who contribute via PayPal. Most people contribute 99 cents a week, and it all helps. It helps keep Maynard in that fancy red drink.
8.May more, a VOC. Google it, people. It's purple.
Google it, people. But for this week, this is Richard Saunders and
Maynard.
Thank you. And Maynard signing off from Sydney, Australia. You've been listening to the Skeptic Zone podcast. Visit our website at www.skepticzone.tv for contacts, an archive of all episodes since 2008, and our online store. Please support the Skeptic Zone by following us on Twitter @SkepticZone, liking us on Facebook, and leaving a review on iTunes. You can also show your support by subscribing via PayPal for as little as 99 cents a week. The Skeptic Zone is an independent production. The views and opinions expressed on the Skeptic Zone are not necessarily those of Australian Skeptics Inc. or any other skeptical organisation.